What's going on? Welcome back to another edition of 92.3 Preps. I am your host, Jackson Schneider. As we get closer to the fall sports season, things are starting to heat up a little bit. Some great conversations with a couple great coaches on deck for you on today's show, but also a look at a team that I think could be on the rise once again this fall on the gridiron. So as we get into the show, I want to thank you all, as always, for tuning into our show. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to our pages, following along on all the action. Again, you can tune in on our ESPN Wichita YouTube page. You can tune in on Spotify, on espnwichita.com, or on the ESPN Wichita app. Plenty of different ways for you to get our shows each week as we get into the really fun part of the year. We've been building this thing slowly over the course of now 3 months, which is crazy to say, but our audience continues to slowly grow, and I appreciate those of you who make this appointment viewing every week. And it's going to get even better as we have more and more substance to look at and to discuss and to preview games and stories and talk about big things as the year really gets rolling here in just a few short days. As a matter of fact, because practices for fall sports here in the state of Kansas begin on Monday. So things will get a little bit more fun, and we'll have some more things to truly look into. But I mentioned a couple of guests, and today we're going to talk some football, but a couple different kinds of football, funny enough. But we'll talk with the head football coach of the Andover Trojans in Jamie Cruce. Got to catch up with him the other day and kind of talk about their summer, the process of growing their program, the philosophies that Coach Cruce has used to be successful over there at Andover to build the program, both on and off the field. So really fun to talk with him about that. And then a new kind of football here in the state of Kansas, one of the fastest growing sports in the area, and now an official KSHA sport, flag football. And there are several teams in the area that have teams or are starting teams, but a good friend of mine is now the head coach of the Derby flag football program. He's also their head girls basketball coach. That's Bryan Chadwick, all around great guy. And we get to talk with him a lot about flag football and a little bit about some basketball, because you can't have the head coach of the Derby Panther girls basketball team and not talk a little bit about basketball as well. But a great conversation with him and just talking about this brand new opportunity for female athletes in the sport of flag football and just the vision for what that can become and what it really looks like to start a program from scratch, completely create one in a short amount of time, to learn about how he wants to build this thing and what the vision for year one and beyond is for Derby is a really fun discussion, and one I think you'll all definitely enjoy. But before we get into that, I want to take a second to thank our great sponsors of this show. Again, as always, Advanced Orthopedics Associates and AOA Now. They have been on with us for several weeks now, and I'm very excited to have them supporting us and everything that they do. So please give them a look, and if you need the attention that AOA Now side, they provide great care for athletes and really just anyone and everyone. So again, thank you to them, but also a brand new sponsor of our show. Excited to launch a partnership as well with Wichita Federal Credit Union, beginning now with our show, but also some exciting things for our high school coverage in the very near future as well. So shout out to, again, our friends at Wichita Federal Credit Union for, again, buying in on this and supporting community, supporting our athletes and our schools and our teams, and the people that run those organizations clearly want to invest and support in these things. And I think there's a lot of people out there like that, but it's so great to see the support and see the vision for what this can become, because again, it is such a underserved area in our community. High school sports means so much to me and to our communities. And so to have people buying in on that just means a lot. So really appreciate them helping us continue to grow this show and have some visions for some big things in the future. Before we get into our interviews, I want to talk about a team to watch. And it's a team that's had a lot of success in recent memory. But last year maybe not their best season. They were young or younger. They were bit by some injuries, and it cost them in what is a very competitive league here in the Wichita area. And that's the Maize South Mavericks. Coach Brent Pfeiffer and the Mavericks are a team that's been on my radar, and really it's always on everyone here in the Wichita area's radar as well, and for good reason, because again, they've been a team that's challenged for deep playoff runs pretty regularly in their history. In 17 years under Coach Pfeiffer, he's won more than 100 games with the Mavericks, and that includes some very deep playoff runs in the last several years. A team that's routinely won 8, 9, 10 games or more on many different occasions. But this year, coming off of a 4-5 season in 2025, I think there's a team in Maize South that could really take a big jump. And they've got some key pieces I want to talk a little bit about, because a lot of times you talk about a team and they only go as far as their quarterback can take them. And that could be true in a lot of cases. Maize South has a great quarterback returning in senior Rain Ilian, threw for over 2,500 yards and 25 touchdowns a season ago. And this is a program that will have exactly that in key quarterback play. It's going to have some new faces and some younger receivers to work with, but also have a very talented running back right next to him to kind of make that life easier for a quarterback to not have to. They will. That's their style. They're going to throw the ball around, and they're going to take advantage of things through the air. But to have a solid running back to complement your quarterback, Hayden Nuss, senior tailback, is going to be doing exactly that. Had 350 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns a season ago. He'll be another key piece for the Mavericks. But the big part of their success that I see comes on the defensive side of the ball for Maize South, because they return a couple of key pieces at really every level. And if you ask Coach Pfeiffer or you preview them at all, there's going to be talent at every level of their defense. And again, last year, some of the struggles that they had defensively were due to some youth and some injuries. But because of those struggles last year, they've been able to create some depth on the defensive side. They got some younger guys, some experience maybe earlier than they would have wanted or expected. But that can pay dividends here in 2026, because you've got guys that have now been underneath the Friday night lights, and they've been on the field when the bullets are flying. And whether or not it was successful at times last year creates experience and knowledge for them to be more successful this season. Defensively, they'll return 8 starters from that team a season ago, including 3 seniors and 5 juniors for this class. So they were playing 5 sophomores and 3 additional juniors that started last season that step into elevated roles with, again, more experience this year. Guys like Cade Carey on the defensive line, Carson Davis, a senior linebacker, Jackson Riley, a senior safety. Looking at Maize South, I see a path for a very successful year for the Mavericks. You look at their schedule, playing in the ABCTL, there will be challenges. There are always challenges in the ABCTL, especially when you've got Maize and Derby and a Salina South team that came out last year at the end of the year and won a couple big playoff games. They look to carry that momentum into this season. They're on Maize South's schedule as well, along with Andover Central, who is a very popular team this year to talk about teams that will take big steps forward and challenge late in the season. And you heard that on this show when we talked to Derek Tuttle a couple episodes ago. They'll also play a very challenging team in Buhler to open the season. That will be a big-time matchup on week 1. Valley Center on the road. I could go through basically their entire schedule and talk about some of the difficulty that Maize South will be up against every single week. But that's something that every team in the ABCTL is used to. Every week is a difficult week in that league. And I think Maize South is positioned to, despite those challenges on their schedule, be a very successful program. So, team to watch, Maize South Mavericks this season. We'll visit more about them and talk to some athletes, potentially some coaches as we get closer to kickoff. But that is my first team to watch this year. We'll dive a little deeper into some other teams again as we get closer to week 1 on September 4th, that first Friday night on the calendar for 2026. But enough of me talking. Let's get to some fun interviews. Again, Bryan Chadwick, the brand new flag football head coach at Derby High School. We'll also talk with the head football coach of the Andover Trojans and Jamie Cruce. Those are coming up next after some words from our sponsors. You're listening to 92.3 Preps here on ESPN Wichita.
I'm always telling him to shake it off, but sometimes we need professional care. Ow! Ow! Thankfully, I know just the place.
AOA Now is your premier orthopedic immediate care for when you need it most. Our expert team specializes in breaks, sprains, and strains. With our new state-of-the-art facility, we'll have you back in action in no time. Visit AOA Now on web and K96 today for fast, specialized orthopedic care where we keep Kansas in motion.
Welcome back here on 92.3 Preps, an ESPN Wichita production. I am Jackson Schneider, pleased to be joined now by the head girls basketball coach at Derby High School in Bryan Chadwick. But, Coach, you added another head coach line to the resume this summer. Tell us a little bit about your new adventure with the growing sport of flag football over there at Derby.
Jackson, first of all, thanks for the coverage. But I got a chance to coach a growing thing. Flag football in Kansas was just put on the docket, and I told everybody I wanted to join the ranks. I started a club at the middle school last year, just a 3-day club for the girls, just so they could understand what it's about. And even after doing that, we just knew that at some point it was going to be a sport in Kansas.
Well, it's growing rapidly. I mean, there's 5 or 6 schools here in Wichita that are adding it for this coming fall for their first season, and there's several other schools across the state that have either just started or started last year. So it's such a big opportunity to give female athletes just another platform, right? But tell us a little bit about kind of what goes into starting a program like that.
Well, first of all, a lot of fear. But no, we noticed that we took Blake to school back when he went to St. Mary, my oldest, and I was like, there's a lot of girls here. And he's like, Dad, they have flag football. So this is a sport where these young ladies can get a scholarship. So growing this sport is something that we want to do. Just making sure we get everything from the fundamentals down. We have to get uniforms. We got lucky. Our AD already got us uniforms. We have a practice field. We're going to have our We're going to have our games at Panther Stadium on Wednesdays. We're just trying to do everything, and it's just a lot. It's a lot. So you're working from the ground up, and then it hit me like I think maybe Monday. I'm going to be the first coach ever. So you have to make sure you put everything there and get it right.
Yeah, and from that's just one side of it, right? Because on the other side of it, you have to find all the athletes and inform them that that we're doing this new thing. Because we all know, all of our listeners and viewers of this show know, there's no shortage of athletes in Derby, that's for sure. But how do you get them to try something new like this?
Well, a lot of it's word of mouth right now, but they did an interest survey right at the end of the year, and we had over 100 girls that were interested in flag football. I would love to see not all the girls try out, but because I don't want to cut. And, that's one of the big things. I want to make sure we give every young lady an opportunity to enjoy this sport. So we just want to make sure it's a fun thing for them. Yes, we want to win, but this is the first year. We want to make sure they understand it, they enjoy it, they get to love it like, everybody else that grew up playing football. Because we have a lot of girls that have played high school football or middle school football, and then they didn't have anything to do. So this is great for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great thing. And you mentioned starting a club at the middle school level, kind of putting a bug in kids' ears early on, and now they get the opportunity to come and truly compete with something like this. But you mentioned with it being, the first year, you want to set a strong foundation, but you want to win as well. How do you kind of toe that line of, okay, we're here to learn, this first year is kind of not to say an experiment, but you're there to kind of figure some things out as a coach as much as the players are. But how do you toe that line of also still being competitive and wanting to continue that standard of excellence over there at Derby High School?
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. That was my phone, my alarms. I have way too many. I'm a middle school teacher, so I'm sorry. But no, really this year, and this is different. I want them to think that I want to win. Don't get me wrong. But the most important thing for me is to understand these young ladies, to have these different types of relationships, to make some of them grow, to give them that empowerment of, hey, I can do anything, with this sport. I can go get a scholarship. I can go talk to whoever I need to now because of this sport. Because we all know that sports makes people get out of their comfort zone. I want to win, Jackson. Don't get me wrong. I'm the girls basketball coach, but ultimately, I want these young ladies to have a great experience with this flag football game and with this program. And I want them to care about it. I want them to care about it like I have everybody caring about. I don't really have it, but it was already there when I got there. Basketball. I want them to be able to say, "Hey, we have the athletes in Derby where we can go compete in flag football."
And again, we're visiting with Bryan Chadwick. He is the new flag football head coach of the Derby Panthers. He's also the girls head basketball coach there in Derby. Coach, talk a little bit with us about kind of that competitive side of things and how you want to toe that line. We'll pick up there. We had a little technical issues, but we're back. But fill us in again on how you want to toe the line between learning and also being competitive.
Like I said, I want to make sure that they get a great experience. I want to win, don't get me wrong, but this is year one into something that is going to be here for a while. We know some of the Kansas City schools have been playing for a while, but we're going to teach everybody how to play the game the right way. We're going to teach everyone how to support each other and how to love each other. And then after that, we're going to build these relationships, and then we'll think about, go win a state title. I just want to be competitive. And I know the athletes in Derby, I had to learn, they don't like losing. So they're going to work their tails off to make us competitive. So that's going to be an easy part. I just want to make sure I'm teaching them the correct tools.
Yeah, and you mentioned, your son Blake had gone to St. Mary, and they have flag football, and there's several other colleges in Kansas that are starting to add flag football, and even some Division I schools are adding opportunities like that. But how cool is it for you as a coach of female athletes to see just another path to potentially continued education and bigger opportunities for your athletes and kids around the state of Kansas?
Yes, it's incredible. I started way back in the day at Wichita Heights when I coached track, and I got to see some of my track athletes that were female get a chance to go run in college. And now that I'm the girls basketball coach, I have girls that are going to play basketball. And now that I'm the flag football coach, to see girls that will be able to go play at the next level is just incredible. And our girls get to see it. They get to see it in the Olympics. So that is just incredible for everybody.
Yeah, and I know, with you being, you've got a very athletic family. For anyone that doesn't know, you've got multiple sons that are very, very good on the basketball court. You're a parent just as much as you are a coach, and I know opportunity is always a big thing for kids. So, to parents of prospective flag football athletes, if you were to be talking to them right now and trying to convince them to let their daughters play flag football and try this out, what would you tell them the biggest benefits of something like this would be?
Well, first of all, I have a cheat sheet for all parents to know about flag football. It's the cheat sheet 101. But I would tell them that this is a great opportunity for one, for your daughter to be involved in school. And then two, for them to be a part of something that they can enjoy and that they could cherish. Something that they can come back and tell everybody, hey, I was part of the very first flag football team in Derby. And then I just tell them, it's a great sport. Let's get out and try.
Yeah, it's a great sport. I've been lucky enough to broadcast some. Not many people so far in the state of Kansas could say they've broadcast flag football, but I could say that, and it's such a cool thing and a great opportunity. But could you walk us through what the start of the season looks like? I know practices will probably get underway next week once the moratorium gets lifted, but kind of walk us through your vision for kind of the first few practices with this new program.
First couple of practices, we got to get used to the heat. So, and I know I had an opportunity, and we're still talking about it, having a early morning practice. I don't want to lose girls just because of that. So we're going to try to keep practices right after school. And from there, I'm saying maybe 3:25 to 5:30ish. And we're going to be getting to know you. We're going to have some dad jokes. It's just silly Coach Chadwick stuff. And then we're going to get into some fundamentals. We're going to get fundamentals of offense and fundamentals of defense. And I'm talking the basics, excuse me, learning what a 5 yard route is, learning what, how to pull a flag. We'll do some games of tag where they can pull flags. We will do just different things, learn how to catch a pass. My old shoulder can't throw it like I used to, so we'll have some people help throw the ball, and like I keep telling everybody, the two most important athletes on that field is the center and the quarterback. And I have to find those. I don't know who's that going to be. So we're going to figure that out. And then we'll go into some defense. And then after defense, we'll talk about a little bit of the special teams because we can punt,
Mhm.
just in case we need to. But I'm going to think about my Madden days. I don't want to punt. So we're going to go for it on 4th and long. Just joking. But we'll do that. And then we'll do some really, really short conditioning, because we're going to put some conditioning in. But I don't want to say we're going to have to go run 17 gassers. No, we're not doing that. We're going to try to do a lot of our running, which we do in basketball too, during our drills and make it more productive. And that's what we try to do. So
I
that's
like it.
basically what we're going to try to do.
Well, the most intriguing part of all of that to me is the realization there that you don't know who's going to play what position. These girls don't know maybe what position they'll play, and you get to kind of do some different drills to figure those things out and see where each girl fits best in a situation like that. But I know you're a guy that likes to plan, and you like to know, here's this girl's going to play this position and things. So for you, that's kind of foreign territory, right? To have to figure that out from ground zero, essentially.
Yes and no. We've done it. Like I said, I've had 3 boys, and so I've done this with them, and trying to figure out who does what. My middle child Cooper was a great center, and then Blake, he was a good quarterback. Gavin could go catch, so we can make it. We can find out some things. We have some drills, and like I do with basketball too, we do a little teaching. And we try to put a plan. I have one plan so I can see who can actually absorb it and who can probably do that for me. So we'll make it work. We'll make it work.
Again, we're visiting with Bryan Chadwick. He is the inaugural head coach of Derby Flag football, and again, the head girls basketball coach there for the Panthers. Coach, before I let you go, I have to ask a little bit about basketball because we have you here. It'd be a missed opportunity not to do so. But tell us a little bit about what
Yes.
the summer looked like on the hardwood and what you're looking at this season for your team.
The summer was exciting for us. We are doing a life without Michaela Askew, and that's different. We both came in together, and that was my girl, and she did a lot of great things for our program. And so now we have to realize that teams really want to play you now. So this summer was about getting to know our new players because we have some new players. No one really knows, but our middle school program has been really, really good at Derby North. They went undefeated 2 years in a row, and our 7th grade group went undefeated last year. And then at Derby Middle, we have the pieces to help us keep being stronger. So getting to know those girls has been a great thing for us. We did not do an out of town camp, I would say, an overnight camp. We didn't do that, but we went to Hutch, we went to Washburn, and we played JV varsity. We played 18 games in 9 days. Those girls were
Wow.
working. And then we did a summer league with, some of those Wichita teams. We did it with Capon, Northwest. We added Wellington, and we did it with Heights. And playing those teams and bringing some of those young girls out there and letting them play. We had a couple of games where we played 15 girls, and we're going 5 for 5, letting them play. We're doing some different things. We're going to press and trap a little bit more, like I used to, like I want to do, and we're going to be really young. But our girls played together. They no bickering, no drama. Knock on wood. It was fun. And for my assistants, I have 2 new assistants because one of my assistants is the campus girls coach now, Kim Carbonell. And then we had a young lady that was our volunteer in our school, Amanda McNeil. She is the May South coach now. And then Danny Allen is our event coordinator. So I had to hire 2 new coaches. So we added Jessica Fuller and Allie Freeman. And Coach Fuller was the girls coach a long time ago. And Allie Freeman was at South Haven, I do believe. But they wanted to be involved with us, and we started teaching. And so I got a chance to teach this summer, and that is something incredible. My assistant Ashton Petersor, he got to teach, and that's what he's just dying to do, is to teach these kids the way we play. We want to play
Mhm.
fast. We want to play great defense. We want to attack on offense. And those are things that we got to do. And I'm not saying we didn't get to do it before, but when you have some kids that've been around you, they kind of just, you can roll the ball out and go. And this is a year where we're gonna learn how to play. We play Andover first. Oh my God, it's gonna be crazy playing them the first game of the year. And then we go to Hayes and we play in a great tournament in Hayes. So we're gonna know about our team early. But the great thing about it, we're gonna learn all throughout the year how resilient they are, because it's going to be a lot of young girls playing. It's going to be a lot of upperclassmen working their tails off and playing. And I still have Asia Fox. So Asia is going to be one of the best players in the league. You know, she was two-time all league. She should have, I'm sorry, my lights just went off. Um, she should have had the defensive player of the year 2 years ago, but she got it last year. She's all state and she is fast and she's going to be exciting. We have our seniors, you know, Zoe Wadey coming from it, playing with us last year. She's going to come and give us some great things. And then we have one that hasn't played in 2 years, Sade Jackson. As a sophomore, as a freshman, she played for me, and she tore her ACL her sophomore summer, and then turned around and did it again her junior summer. But if you've seen her now, you wouldn't think she ever had an injury.
Wow.
We let her play the last summer league game, and I'm freaking out because I don't want her getting hurt. And she's diving on the floor, running around. My assistant wouldn't take her out. And he's looking at me like, nope, she's staying in, coach. She wants to play. And then we play kickball the next day, and she's just running around. Her brother plays at K-State. But Rashad Jackson's her dad. There's the genes are there, but she's going to be exciting just to see her get back on the court too. So no, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Well, it'll be here before you know it. And I know not to put the cart before the horse, but basketball is one of my favorites. You know that as well as anybody. But one more
Yes.
question, because you are a coach. You've now got a coach in the family. Blake getting a couple of years under his belt here at Newman. I got to know him really well over the last couple of seasons, but he got a great experience there and now takes it to Pitt State, an incredible opportunity there. Just tell me a little bit about how proud of dad you are. I know you're a proud guy.
Oh my goodness, yes. We having him coach, and I had learned at a very young age. I knew he wanted to coach. I could tell. You know, he's sitting down trying to watch film with me, and I was like, okay, you want to watch film? Go ahead. And then just listening to him, you know, he coached his brother, Gavin, our youngest, in AAU ball and coaching those kids, and he did an excellent job. And then when he got a chance to coach at Newman, I watched him. I watched him on the sidelines. And then, you know, Gavin Thurman's one of my ex-players, and he was there, and he's like, Coach, he does some of the stuff you do. I'm like, oh, no, that's not good. But he enjoys it, you know, and he lives it. And he got a great opportunity with Coach Allen at Newman. And now with Coach Boshi over at Pitt State, he's just loving it. You know, he wants to be a college coach. He wants to be involved. He wants to train. He loves developing players. And that's what he gets to do right now. So as a dad, I am happy. He gets to do something he's passionate about. And that's something that my father always told me. Don't be a just worker. Go do something you want to do. So that's what I did. I made a change at 40, got a new job, and became a teacher. And Blake's doing that. I said, Blake, one day you may have to be a high school coach because, you know, you got to teach everybody how to do it the right way. And he's like, I know, Dad, I know, but I like the college ranks. I said, okay. But no, we are so proud of him. We're so proud.
You definitely should be. He's a great guy, great interview. I've interviewed him a couple of times for some pregame notes and things like that. Always love visiting with him and certainly wish him the best. But Coach Chadwick, again, thank you so much for joining us to preview a brand new season and a brand new sport there at Derby. We'll be following along this year and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That's Bryan Chadwick, head girls flag football coach and girls basketball coach at Derby. We'll take a quick break here on our show. We'll be back with more right after this.
I'm always telling him to shake it off, but sometimes we need professional care. Ow! Ow! Thankfully, I know just the place.
AOA Now is your premier orthopedic immediate care for when you need it most. Our expert team specializes in breaks, sprains, and strains. With our new state-of-the-art facility, we'll have you back in action in no time. Visit AOA Now on web and K96 today for fast, specialized orthopedic care where we keep Kansas in motion.
Welcome back here on 92.3 Preps as we continue getting ready for the 2026 fall sports season. I'm Jackson Schneider, pleased to be joined now by the head football coach of the Andover Trojans and Jamie Cruce. Coach, thank you for joining us today, and hopefully you're staying cool. It's a little hot out there.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. We're excited to visit with you. It's going to be warm. We start this next week, and it's going to be warm as well. Just like a lot of people have to make some adjustments with timing of practices and whatnot.
Well, let's start there. As you look ahead, it's funny because I want to talk to you about your summer, but it's almost hotter now than it was probably when your kids were in the weight room and doing summer camps and things like that. How do you adjust to heat like this? Because obviously you got to keep the kids safe as much as you want to get ready for your first game and everything.
Yeah, it's a challenge, no question, because you need to get them ready to play on Friday, in which they make some slight adjustments. You might have an extra minute here or there for some water breaks at change of possession or quarter change in those. But in reality, when it's really hot, you're not able to practice probably enough outside to acclimate. Within those first, less than 3 weeks, and then you're out there playing games. So I think every coach, it's a concern, how you balance following the rules. First of all, you want to follow the rules as far as the wet bulb, and we certainly do that. But at the same time, you also want your kids to be ready to play, not only just mentally but health wise. You need them healthy in that game, so those first few weeks, it's a challenge for sure before the weather starts cooling off.
Well, tell us a little bit about your summer, though. Obviously, last year was a big step forward for your program. Got a couple of really big wins, including a win over Salina Central, who went on to win the 5A state championship. But how did you carry that momentum into the offseason and keep these kids working and moving forward?
Yeah, I think, first of all, we go back to our seniors from last year and the seniors from the year before did a great job of kind of quickly getting things turned around. It doesn't take long when you have some classes of kids that work hard and are quality young men, and then obviously are good football players. That helps. So I think we were able to build off some success from year one, and then just like anybody, once you kind of get over that hump of the kids believing they can win, and you get some kids playing hard and some talent, you're usually disappointed in the last game of the year if you don't win it. So I think our kids were hungry heading into this off season for sure, just like, again, everybody should be. But we do have a lot of guys coming back who have some experience, even if they weren't starters. So I think that in and of itself, created some excitement where the kids knew we were really close to doing some even better than we did last year. We ended on a note where we thought, hey, had we taken care of business a little bit, we felt like we could have played continually, at least for a few more weeks. So challenging the kids wasn't a huge priority for us because they were already hungry for it. So we've had a good summer. We kind of shut it down the last week, and now that hopefully the kids are rested, and now we get back to school here and get going.
Well, looking at the group that you come back with this year, who are some of the guys that you've really leaned on for some leadership throughout this summer to make sure you're holding guys accountable and attendance is good and effort is where it needs to be over the summer to continue the upward trajectory?
Yeah, well, I think it usually starts. For us, we feel like our offensive line and their work. We like to always talk about them just because the other guys get in the paper because they get to throw the ball, catch the ball, and run the ball. And for us specifically, we run the ball quite a bit. So naturally, Pete Vega had a good year last year. He rushed for over 1,000 yards. Will Quinn did a great job for us at quarterback. And so those two guys come back, and that's awesome. And we returned Leland Schumacher at slot. We graduated, a really good slot as well. But we got some guys back who understand the skill positions. We'll replace some receivers, but really we say our offensive line, those guys work hard at kind of laying the foundation of what we do. So, obviously, a big right tackle, Tyson Ross is a kid who, works hard for us, and he's a big kid, and so he can lead by example. But Zane Tucker is a returning starter for us who played guard, and he'll play center for us this year. So those two kind of returning guys, but really the whole offensive line group. So you say we've probably got 6 to 8 guys that can realistically play for us in this this year on Fridays at offensive line. So those guys are kind of the ones that led the way. But naturally the seniors, who not only have been with us, but also maybe some kids who didn't come out and now come back out. We've been able to kind of do that those first 2 years. We've had kids come out that maybe weren't out as sophomores or juniors, and then they come back kind of to the fold, which is nice.
Well, kind of on that note, I talked to a lot of coaches about building their program and getting kids excited and adding numbers, whether or not they're coming in as freshmen or joining a little later on. How do you go about, continuing to grow as a program by drawing in new athletes and kind of making sure that this program is one that entices students to be a part of it?
Yeah, football is a sport that's it's shrinking in numbers, for sure. There's just so many more options for kids to do now with year-round basketball. Baseball's been going year-round for quite a while, but now basketball with all the travel stuff and the AAU and the what they're able to do throughout not only just the basketball season, but into summer and then in the fall. So there's a lot of options out there for kids to to participate in things, and then obviously there's more things to hold their attention. Electronically now, probably than, even just 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So it's a challenge, I think, for everybody. But one thing you can't do is you can't get soft and say, well, you just want everybody to play, because you still need kids that are dedicated. Football's a hard sport. It's a hard sport to be good at because it takes a lot of people in sync to practice. If you're a quarterback or a receiver, you can go out and throw and catch the ball kind of on your own. But otherwise, you need those 5 guys up front running the scheme together. You need the backs to read blocks. You need everybody kind of working together. Then you need somebody kind of on the defensive side, just speaking offensively, you need somebody giving you some resistance or movement so you can, react to that as you're in your blocking schemes or in your reads throwing the ball. So it's not something where you can just go out and shoot baskets or go take BP. It takes a lot to be good at football. And so I think that's always a challenge. So you want to make it fun. I mean, you can't have 3.5-hour practices. You need to get in and out. We don't do a lot of conditioning with what we do in our football program. We just try to practice at kind of a high tempo, and that takes care of some of the conditioning. So I think things have changed a lot over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years as far as how you run a practice. And but yeah, everything else is just treat kids right, push them, and then obviously success breeds interest, and people want to be involved when you have some success. And we were lucky to have a big freshman class last year. Numbers are a little bit down this year as far as freshmen, but our sophomore class is really big, and not only good numbers, but some good football players and good kids. So I think that that helps when you have those younger kids as well as obviously some of our better older players.
Certainly. And I did want to ask you a little bit about your playing style. You talk about, running the football a lot, and you put a lot of emphasis earlier in this and talking about your offensive line. Feels like that style is less and less common anymore, at least that in my observation. But what particularly about that style of play and running the ball a lot in kind of a unique fashion fits your program, and how has that been such a successful tool for you?
Well, we could talk for about 3 hours on just that question alone. I think there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of ways to cook a good dinner. But we found that this is a good way for us to do it. It allows us to. It's nice because we do have some decent size up front at this current time, but schematically, when you do run some option schemes, it forces defenses into certain rule-based and extremely sound schemes, which eliminates some of the junk defenses you can get, where maybe they're overloading some coverage or trying to maybe confuse your quarterback in some looks. So that being said, my background is a defensive player in college, and then I was a defensive coordinator in college. And when I became a head coach, I transitioned a little bit more over the offense just as a necessity. And so when we first went to the high school coaching, when we went to Pratt, we actually brought I was the only coach that was on staff at the college I was at, and then came down, took the head job at Pratt, and we installed our spread stuff, from Bethany. And, we were a pass first offense, at that time. And we struggled in that concept. And I knew I defended the flex bone and option stuff as a defensive coordinator, and it was difficult. I didn't probably really understand the offense. But I knew enough people that did. So I knew we had some tough kids with some talent coming up at Pratt, obviously. And so, we told our guys, pretty much after the season, hey, this is the change we're going to make. We visited with the staff, and then visited with, multiple coaches, at Coach Dreiling and Coach Swati and Coach Vernon and some other guys that I was able to have relationships with, and then kind of learn the ins and outs of some of the flexbone concepts, and you continue to grow that. And what we like about it is it gives us some attitude, because just like any offense, there's basically there's three phases to it. You can have your basic power run game, and then we can have our option game, and then we can have our usually play action, some version of play action stuff. And if you can get good at least two of those three things, you have a chance to win. If you can get good at all three, you're going to be really tough to stop. And we play really sound defense here. Our defensive coordinator, Coach Alexander, and Coach Penner, our whole defensive staff, they do a great job. And when you play really sound, solid defense, you do appreciate an offense that can take some time off the clock and not give the other team, 10 to 12 possessions in a game, and so it puts pressure on the other team. When you're able to, the very first, my second year there at Pratt, when we were running flexbone, the very first drive we had of the season running flexbone, we went on like a 12-play drive, drove 12 or 15 plays, and we drove down inside the 15-yard line and ended up fumbling the ball. So we thought, well, we know if we can execute this, we can not only sustain and score points, but it also puts pressure on the other side of the ball, on the other team, to play not only sound defense, but now they got to score quick because they're not going to get a bunch of possessions.
Well, going back a little bit, I wanted to ask you a little bit more in depth about the win over Salina Central last year, because that was a high-profile game at that time, and I think a lot of people in this state knew that both you and Salina Central were capable of making some deep playoff runs. But you go to Salina, which is never an easy place to go and win, but you not only win, you win convincingly. Tell me a little bit about that game and just the atmosphere around it and what led to the win, and not only that, but also kind of where that can launch your program, showing your kids that you can beat, the best of the best.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Coach Sambo and his staff do a great job, and their players do a great job. And they had an exceptionally good team last year, and they have for the last couple of years. I thought their offensive line was really good, probably overall the biggest offensive line we've seen in a while. Hayes a couple of years ago was maybe the biggest all-around high school team that I've seen. Just kind of size of their players. When we played in the playoffs 2 years ago, but Salina Central had a really good offensive line, good size. They all moved pretty well, and had a number of guys that could play there, and that really complemented their later in the season. After our game, I think that they probably leaned on the run a little bit more. Coach Sambo is a guy that likes to throw it around, but to his credit, I think maybe he learned a little bit and said, hey, we've got these studs offensive linemen, and we got this back, and a quarterback could run the ball as well. So I think that they became a very tough team to defend. What helped us is early on in the game, they had the very first play of the game for them, they snapped the ball over the quarterback's head. So he got a loss of yardage and a grounding penalty, I believe, intentional grounding. And so right away that set him up in a long yardage situation. And they just, then they struggled to recover from that because we were able to score every time we got the ball. And then so that just put the pressure on. So they had to probably throw the ball a little bit more than they wanted to. And that just got them out of sync. And that was, admittedly, that was our cleanest game probably on both sides of the ball. We played really well. And so that was nice to go back and reflect on it as Salina Central made their run to their championship. I think it showed our guys, hey, if we take care of business, we're right there, and we can play with and beat some of these best teams in the state.
On that note, you've got yourself, and then just across town, there's another football program that's really solid as well. And I talked to Coach Tuttle a week or so ago about, what it can do for a community to have two really solid programs. And I know you're looking at the first weeks of practice, and eyes are on week 1, but their week 2 looms this matchup with Andover Central. Tell me a little bit about that rivalry right now and how fun it is to be a part of that when both programs are competing and playing very, very high level football.
Yeah, we mentioned this, went over and spoke to our middle school at the end of last year and talked to them about, maybe it was at their football banquet, I think. Went and talked to them, and we made reference to, the number of losses that the middle school here had, and the number of losses that we had at the high school and at our freshman and JV and varsity levels, and then the 7th and 8th grade levels. And I think combined, like all the teams lost like 5 games. So, and then we talked about, I think at our banquet, we talked about how not only that, and we talked about Andover Central, they won the title the year before in 4A, and they'd had success. They were a little bit down last year, but they were still a good football team, and I think they're going to be really good this year. And what Coach Tuttle's been able to do over there, I think just the town and the city of Andover is it's something that they can take pride in. And I know that they're proud of both football programs. Obviously we hope to continue to rise and develop and to have some of the same accolades that they've had. Would love to be able to play for a state championship, and that they were able to do it for a couple of years. So yeah, I think it's something that the town can be proud of. And I grew up in Salina, and I went to Salina South. And Salina Central was the good team. Like my senior year, Salina Central won the state championship, and we were over at Salina South, and I think we were 4-5. So we were just average, and they were really good. And then Salina South got really good, and what Stoney was able to do there, Coach Stonebreaker, and those guys, and then it was kind of back and forth each year. One of them there for like 3 or 4 years. One of them would win the state championship, or at least play for it. And so I know how that can impact a town, and it's just nice, natural crosstown rivalries. But, now, especially in today's day and age where, it used to be you didn't really know, you kind of had a rivalry and you didn't really get along with the other people on the other side of town. Well, now with social media, one of the positive things is you kind of get to know the other people, and they're more than just another player. They're you get to know them and their personality, and sometimes that's good or bad. But I think there's some mutual respect for what, for sure, we respect what Coach Tuttle and their players and their admin they've been able to do over there, and I think it's mutual. Just talking with our coaches, they're really really good people, and we appreciate them as players and coaches. So it's a neat thing for the town. Again, I think we're the ones that have to up our game and to get to the level that they've been able to get to. But it's a neat situation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's funny. You say you grew up in Salina in that atmosphere. I grew up in Lawrence. And so there's a similarity there between Lawrence and Free State. And especially I relate to what you said about knowing kids at the other school. I had, best friends that went to Lawrence High, and I went to Free State, and it was great and fun, except for one Friday every fall when we hated each other. But it was one of the more fun atmospheres that I ever remember being, around. And I was just a kid standing on the sideline. I never played all that much. That's why I'm on the microphone anymore. But it's such a cool thing to have that opportunity. But Coach Cruce, before I let you go, I just want to ask you as well, leading into this season, where's maybe the biggest area of growth that your program needs to move? Like where's that big step need to come before week 1 against Hutch?
Yeah, I don't see it as a big step for us. I think we're at a point now, where we've got enough kids that have played, and we have some good playmakers back on both sides of the ball, and some kids that will step into some spots we think they're going to be pretty good. I think more of it's just don't get bored with the process. Make sure that every rep is still something you take serious, as this makes a huge difference. Because 2 years ago when we started, practice 3 of week 2 is going to look about the same as this year. Our periods don't change much as far as what we do, the reps we get, the looks we give our kids. And so they just need to continue the process. It's kind of a cliche thing, but just keep chopping wood, keep your nose down, continue to be a great person, do great things in school, and, off the field, do the right thing, and good things will happen. And if you have good enough athletes doing that, then you should expect to win your games. But again, that's a byproduct of doing the right thing. So we just want to continue to do the little things that give us a chance to be successful, and then, take advantage of our opportunities. But obviously we are looking to extend our playing past week 9. I mean, that's going to be a goal for ours. We feel like we lost against a team that played really well, and Salina South, again, I'm an alumni. I was obviously it hurt. I was kind of proud of what they were able to do, but as the coach here, I feel like we kind of left some stuff out there for us, where we feel like we should have won the game. But that's the great thing about football. If you play hard and work hard in the summer, you'll have a chance to win. Nothing's guaranteed. It's got to all come together. So, but we are excited for practice 1, and then we'll be excited for game 1. So it's just baby steps for us.
Awesome. Well, Coach, again, thank you so much for taking some time to visit with us and talk about, all sorts of things, but look forward to following you and your team this season, and best of luck this year.
Okay. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. That is Jamie Cruce, head football coach of the Andover Trojans. We'll take a quick break and be back with more here on 92.3 Preps right after this.
I'm always telling him to shake it off, but sometimes we need professional care. Ow! Thankfully, I know just the place.
AOA Now is your premier orthopedic immediate care for when you need it most. Our expert team specializes in breaks, sprains, and strains. With our new state-of-the-art facility, we'll have you back in action in no time. Visit AOA Now on web and K96 today for fast, specialized orthopedic care where we keep Kansas in motion.
Final segment here on 92.3 Preps today, episode 12 of our show. We continue to get closer to the first weeks of the season for fall sports. Football, flag football, cross country, volleyball, all sorts of sports getting ready to start practices officially on Monday. Now, again, it's been hot outside. We talked about that with some of our coaches and how they plan to deal with the heat, change their practice schedules a little bit. Maybe some of their practice habits early on will be adjusted, obviously, to keep athletes safe and healthy, but still want to maximize their time on the field as practices begin here in just a few short days. But with that heat, still some work to be done, and we'll be trying to get around and talk to some coaches, visit some different practices, mix in some other sports. We've talked primarily football over the last several weeks, but volleyball, again, definitely on our radar. Obviously, flag football, with it being brand new, we'll talk some of that as well as we get deeper into it over the next few weeks as well. but some very exciting stuff coming our way. Also, our football games of the week broadcast. I'm starting to get some notes in on some teams. We talked about my team to watch in Maize South a little earlier on in the show. On the football field, we've got some great games on the schedule this year, so be on the lookout again for us to deliver our official schedule for Game of the Week here on ESPN Wichita coming very, very soon. Just a couple small details waiting to get finalized before we can announce that full schedule. I've talked on our shows previously some dates that we do have finalized. That full schedule, though, is still coming soon. And again, hope to deliver that to you as soon as we possibly can. But again, big shout outs to Jamie Cruce and to Bryan Chadwick for joining us on our show today. Thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in and enjoying our show. As always, be on the lookout for another great episode next week as we, again, officially start practices on Monday. Looking forward to it. I know you all are as well. But signing off here for 92.3 Preps, I'm Jackson Schneider. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.